Hey everyone, a warm welcome to our brand new tutorial. Today, we're going to create a really magical scene using grass, mountains, particles, and planets. It's a pretty magical scene, and I hope you guys like it. We're going to build exactly what you see here. As you can see, the grass in the foreground is moving, and it's real grass. I used to make tutorials with After Effects, but for a while now, I've been working in Fusion, so we'll use Davinci Resolve Fusion to create this effect. Of course, if you know After Effects, you can also use it and take advantage of plugins like Trapcode Particular. You can check out all the assets that will be available here, but this tutorial itself will be focused on Davinci Resolve. I think it should also work in the free version, though I'll be using the studio version here. So, I invite everyone to join in. Starting today, this will be a new series where I want to make visually striking tutorials like this one, mainly using the Davinci Resolve suite or maybe Blender. I invite you to check out my website, where, if you have any projects or gigs, I'd be happy to take them on, especially if they're interesting projects. You can also check out my portfolio. On my website, you'll find a ton of assets you can buy for your projects. In this tutorial, we'll use a small portion of those assets, which I'm giving you for free. There are literally thousands of assets on my site, including a bunch of different packs for Blender, 3D models, volumetrics, magic packs, clouds, explosions, plants, planets, galaxies, shockwaves, meteors, blood, lightning, auroras. There's a ton of stuff, and there'll be even more. So, I warmly invite you to check it out. Maybe you'll find something you like and want to grab. Thanks. As I mentioned, all the assets we'll use in this tutorial are available for free, downloadable from our website. I'll show you those assets so we know what we're working with. We've got a high-quality mountain here, which we'll create in Fusion, but if you don't want to start from scratch, it'll be provided as a pre-rendered EXR file. We've also got grass assets in various qualities, 4K and PNG, as well as a few assets from the Universe and Aurora packs. Alright, let's dive into the production and animation. First, we'll pick our plane. That's asset number 1. I won't comment on every single step, so it's best to just follow along with me. I think you probably get the gist of what I'm doing here. More or less. We need to scale it up a bit. Sometimes, I'll speed things up a bit if we're repeating stuff, like copying things over. We can load our texture into our model. Though in this case, we won't really need it too much. But let's keep it anyway. We turn on the particle emitter and set it to mesh. Region Mesh, which is our 3D model that we just hooked up. Of course, we also need a particle renderer. I'm setting the quality to 4K because it just looks nice. But if someone has a weaker computer, I'd suggest sticking to full HD. We bring in our grass and hook it up to the P emitter. In the style settings, we set it to bitmap so the grass is visible. And we scale it up a bit. As you can see, the grass is moving. It's just popping up in different versions every frame. So, we set the particle birth time in animate. And now we've got everything more mixed up. We increase the number of particles. Let's say to 300, and now we've got some grass, like a grassy terrain. Now, we set keyframes so the grass is there but doesn't pop up over time. We also increase the lifespan of the particles and shorten our timelines so the animation starts, say, from frame 20. In rotation, we turn off Always Face Camera and manually set the grass rotation, tweaking it a bit. We add a merger and a camera, and now we can animate it however we like. In my case, I want a simple forward motion, straight ahead. We enable a second preview to make things easier. On one preview, we select our merger and set up our camera. Now we'll see on one preview what our camera sees, and on the other, we can adjust it however we like. We enable keyframes, go to the other side of the timeline, and animate the camera. Now we can make any tweaks if needed, if the camera movement doesn't feel right. I'll add a bit of rotation. And there we go, we've got that upward effect. I'd like to add a little more randomness to the camera movement. So I select Transform 3D and hook it up to our camera. I set the pivot of this node roughly to the camera's position, so I can add extra camera movements. In this case, I'll use randomness in X, Y, Z rotation with the shake modifier. And there we go. We've got some randomness. Just a small tweak to the movement. I'll also change the resolution here, but as I said, if you've got a weaker computer, just keep it as it was at the start. If everything looks good, we want to render our particles. Here's our finished render. We choose the save path. You can save it as any file type, but I suggest saving it as EXR, because we'll need the world position Z later, or maybe vector. We'll see. Once everything is rendered, we can turn off what we were working on before and load the rendered animation. I suggest rendering everything step by step, as it'll speed up our work significantly. Let's copy our merge now, along with the camera movement. We can combine it, and this way, we can add a bit more detail to the foreground by adding our 4K grass from the plant's 4K pack. As you can see, we don't have an alpha channel here, but there's a separate luma channel. All you need to do is switch the channel to luminance and connect it to the mask. And there we go. We've got our alpha channel. We can also add a bit more smoothness to this mask so the transitions aren't so harsh when we blend it. We add our image plane and connect it to the merge. Now all we need to do is set it up in a spot that we like. This is a much higher resolution than the previous PNG files. so I'd recommend being careful with duplicating this. We enable the duplicate 3D node and arrange our duplicates in 3D space however we like. Trying to make sure it covers as much of our scene as possible, so it's in the foreground. But let's remember not to overdo it with the quantity. To add some randomness, we take the time offset and do the same with the other assets. Of course, we set each one slightly differently with a random seed. We can also slightly shift it back on the timeline in the Keyframes tab if objects suddenly pop up. It's best to enable proxy, as it'll speed up our animation and our work. We add another asset and set it up in space just like before. Here, we also render everything, and after rendering, we bring back our new file. We combine them together, and this way, we've got two finished clips merged. Now we move on to the next part, which is the mountains. We load a 3D model. If someone doesn't want to create these 3D models, as I mentioned earlier, we've got ready-made assets provided by me. You just need to drop them in here, just like we'll do in a bit after generating the finished screenshots. If you feel like skipping this process, you can just drop in the pre-rendered mountains, but if you're feeling ambitious, I invite you to try making your own mountains. We add a texture and a camera. This camera will show us exactly what we'll be rendering, so we zoom out so our mountain fits in the frame. We add lighting multiple times. In fact, and in the render settings, we enable the light and set it up however we like. To add more details, I use fractal noise. Connecting our mountain to the fractal noise to add more details. Oops, I messed up here because I accidentally plugged it in as a mask. It should, of course, be connected to the second channel so it all works. But you'll see, we'll still make something out of it. We create a bump map channel and tweak the light color a bit. I'll change the resolution for rendering to get more details at 4K. Just multiply those values by 2. Oh, and I also changed something here. I plugged it in again. Let's add some ambient light and save image. This way, we rotate the mountain and create new assets using Save Image. Some can be slightly enlarged. Once we've got a few generated images, we can combine them. Copying our camera again and the 3D render. Hooking it all up together with a new image plane. And dropping our mountains here. Of course, we need to scale it up a bit, rotate it. And move it back. Now we can combine it to see how our scene behaves. We see the mountain is far back. And everything works together. Using the same method, we can add more mountains and arrange them however we like. Remembering to have some mountains closer to us and some farther away, so they don't overlap and cause errors. We add a new background that will serve as our sky backdrop, the first layer. We change the solid to a gradient and set it up roughly to look like our sky. We connect our camera. No need to duplicate it a million times, just hook it up to what's already there. That's what nodes are for. We mix everything together, and we see that our background is already in the back. But we still need to position it in space. So, we enable the camera preview, and on the second preview, we set where it sits in space. Now let's add other assets, like a nebula, which is part of the universe pack. Just a small part, because there's really a ton of assets in there, including everything from planets, comets, galaxies, stars, suns, black holes, planetary rings, and a lot more. If you're interested, you can check it out on our website. We set it up in space. Along with stars and a planet, which are also part of that pack. We add our aurora as well. But we'll need to place it in a new 3D render. So we copy the merge as well. Add our camera and connect it all together. We did this because, on this layer, we can apply the Apply mode screen. Oops, I connected it wrong. Sorry, it needs to be connected here. As you can see, our scene is already put together. Everything works together now. Now, we need to make it all feel more realistic. So, we copy our background, set the color to black, and set the alpha channel to 0 to get fog. Which covers our sky, just like real fog does. We can, of course, play around with the settings. To our other renders, we add fog. Changing the color to the one we used before, so on one preview, we've got one fog color, and on the other, a different one, and we can now grab that color data. Now we can set up our fog, how it interacts with the space. To have an alpha channel, we just connect it to the mask, and set it up however we like, remembering that things farther away should be less visible, meaning more foggy. While things closer up will always be more detailed, with more color. We copy and paste to the next assets, setting it up like before, just with slightly different values. You'll need to play around with this a bit to make it look good. We copy and move on, but we'll definitely come back to this because, as we tweak the scene's colors, we'll also need to adjust our fog settings a bit. We add a background because there's a gap at the bottom, so we'll need to cover it somehow. We added too few grass particles. That's why it turned out like this. We animate the mask. Duplicate our atmosphere layer again, and place it even closer to the mountains to create fog in front of them, adding more realism. We play with the settings. Matching the colors so the fog on the grass and the mountains looks consistent color-wise. Setting everything up to make the transitions as seamless as possible. Now we can color everything however we like. At the very end, we can add some color correction and a bit of glow. X-Glow is from the reactor, it's free, so you can grab it. Anything that's too bright, we can tweak a bit more. Let's add some more particles. Setting it to 4K and connecting the camera. As the region, we'll use a cube and scale it up to fit our scene. As you can see, we've got quite a few particles. But we'll change their style a bit, from point to blob, and tweak the colors a bit. We'll change the scale when they appear and end. Add a bit of randomness. And also add a new node that lets us move these particles slightly in a random way. Increasing their value a bit. That looks pretty good. Let's add a bit more color variety and tweak the size a bit. Adjusting their number. We combine everything together and see how it looks in the whole scene. Raising it a bit, and I think that's good. We could add motion blur right away, but in this case, it'll slow down our rendering quite a bit, so I'll skip it and leave it for later. Here, we'll increase the brightness a bit and render our scene. We're almost at the finish line. But we can add a bit of chromatic aberration and a bit of grain. I'd recommend adding grain at the very end of our edit, after motion blur. We render, switch to Davinci Resolve, and drop in our finished file. Here, we'll make the final tweaks and final color grading, adding a bit of motion blur and changing the resolution. We go to the Color tab. Where there's a cool new plugin called Film Look Creator. And we can tweak the colors here however we like. I'll also use some color presets I bought online. Some of them are really cool, so I use them sometimes. I'll just tone down the strength of this color a bit. And you can really tweak everything to your liking. The only thing we're missing now is maybe a bit of shadow at the bottom. So we add a mask and adjust the shadows, animating it. And that's it. We save our project and move to rendering. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, just write. Sorry if anything was unclear or for any mistakes that popped up here. I'll try in the future to avoid them and make it more understandable. The free assets are available for download in the video description and on my website in the free packs section. Cheers!